Hello, everyone. Welcome to Agoric's 8th community call. It's May 5th, 2021. I'm Roland Grouse, product manager at Agoric, and really excited to have you all here. We've got a lot of things to go through today, so let's just get rolling. So a few topics. So we're going to talk through the Incentivized Testnet, which you all know is ongoing right now, and it's happening in several phases. We'll talk through where we're at, what's happened over the past month, and then the next phase that's about to kick off. We've got two special guests coming on. So a couple people, Dean and Dan, going to talk about our transition to XS and what that means for the Agoric platform, and also what that means for this current testnet phase. And then we'll also talk about our upcoming developer program and developer bounties, and then a few things that are happening over the course of the next month. All right. So for the Incentivized Testnet, as I mentioned, it's happening in 5 phases. And right now we are about to start staking dynamics. So you can see that the phase 3 actually is starting basically today. We've had 2 phases already. The onboarding phase really was mostly about having all of our validators practice getting set up. And infrastructure is where we saw the first initial load. We saw a decentralized chain start. Had a bunch of learnings from that. Really appreciated everybody in the community coming together. It was really great to see. And staking dynamics starts today. And then the next 2 phases will run us through June. So a lot more to talk about as we keep moving there. So let's talk about staking dynamics Genesis. So validators have already submitted their Genesis transactions, and we are actually in the process of generating the Genesis block right now. So I actually don't have Discord up, but that should be coming out in the next few minutes. And then the decentralized chain start is going to happen Thursday, May 6th, which is tomorrow, almost exactly 24 hours from now at 9 a.m. So that got moved out one day just to make sure that everybody's got enough time to get rolling. So decentralized chain start last time was pretty fun. So it's going to be fun again. We'll have everyone in Discord. It's a party. If you're a validator, make sure that your node is ready before then. All right. So let's also talk about the last phase. So we had a huge amount of participation, 39 published articles. Over 90% of the network tasks were completed by people. You guys have done an awesome job just getting things submitted, being organized. We had 24 challenge tasks come in, which is really great to see because those do take a bunch of additional work. For those of you that aren't part of the Incentivized Testnet, the challenge tasks are really additional either dashboards or software that we're looking for to help validators, help other users work with the chain. And so when people take their time to submit those, that's a really great sign. And we really appreciate it and been excited to see all the support we've gotten. Beyond that, we've been really, really excited to see how you've all supported each other. So, in the Discord, people are asking questions, other validators are answering. That's such a huge help for the chain. And we've really seen a lot of good camaraderie there. So, this is the community call, and we really just want to call out that the community so far has been doing such a great job during this testnet. We also have appreciated, a number of you have reached out to us on ways that we can improve our documentation, things that weren't clear, and please keep doing that. I think from the Agoric perspective, a lot of what we're learning in this incentivized testnet is really how to communicate with the community and how to make sure that what we have built and what we're asking people to run is clear. So that's been really great. Okay, so let's talk about the staking dynamics phase, which is kicking off today. And technically the chain start is tomorrow, but the way I like to think about it, we actually have a whole bunch of tech that is coming together for the staking dynamics phase. So last month we released our beta, and that was the first real interaction with treasury vaults and the AMM pools for trading. Users can come in, download the wallet, and interact with a live hosted, chain hosted application to actually deal with the economic institutions that will form the core of the Agoric economy. And with the staking dynamics phase, we're actually adding the next piece to that. So the AMM, for example, now when you trade on that, that will actually generate a protocol fee, and that protocol fee can be collected by Agoric and distributed to stakers and validators as part of their role in securing the economy. And similarly with the vault. So as the vault earns interest, that gets paid out as well. So the piece that connects the economy back to stakers and validators and really creates the loop that makes the Agoric chain and economy work is completed for the first time as part of this phase. Beyond that, and this starts to get a little bit more technical, but beyond that, we've also completed a really core piece of work that allows the Cosmos layer to talk to the Agoric VM layer swing set, so that your balance, which might exist on the Cosmos layer for build, now can also be represented in JavaScript, and you can take that build and do interesting things with it in the Agoric economy. So being able to move back and forth between the Agoric VM and Cosmos is a critical piece of infrastructure that has come together for this phase. So it's great from our side to finally see all this stuff actually connecting, and we hope that validators who are in this phase will start to see it as well. And you'll see some of that reflected in the tasks that we'll be asking you to do, is actually interacting with a bunch of these pieces. So it's really, I think the mentality at Agoric has gotten really, really excited just seeing all this happen, and we're really excited for this phase. All right, so the one piece that I didn't really talk about that also has been a huge effort on the Agoric side in preparation for this phase is the transition to XS as part of staking dynamics. So I'm going to bring on Dean Tribble, who you all know, and Dan Connolly, who most of you in Discord know, but probably haven't met before, and to talk about what that means for the Agoric platform. So let's bring them on here. Hey, Dean. Hey, Dan.
Hello, and hello everyone out there. I actually propose that we talk about XS because it's such an important piece of what we're building in terms of system architecture, and it affects the validators right now, and we really haven't talked very much about it at all. And so I'm here. I have Dan Connolly here. He'll say a little more about his background, but he joined us as a contractor working on this XS integration quite a while ago, and then we managed to bring him on full time in the middle of the pandemic here, and all of his work for the last year, 2 years, something like that, is coming together and is showing up on the testnet that will be starting tomorrow morning. And so talking about what we're doing here seemed like a really good time to begin that.
Fun stuff.
Say a little bit about your background, Dan.
Right. So I'm a software engineer here at Agoric, like Dean said. I discovered a bunch of stuff like object capability security when I was working on web architecture at the Web Consortium. And it was a huge light bulb in that it scales way down to things like these microcontrollers and way up to things like the planet scale, like blockchains. And I could sort of see that. And so it was really interesting to watch the smart contracts and object capabilities and stuff. And then I heard that this kind of Agoric stuff was coming together to mix in blockchains, and I started watching very closely and trying to figure out how.
You already worked on some blockchain projects, right?
Yes, there was one or two other blockchain projects. I stuck my toe in the water with Ethereum, and I did a little stuff on our chain, which is another one that uses capabilities. Anyway, but it was the XS engine was the first place where they said, oh, yes, we need somebody to work on that. And I said, oh, yes, this thing is great fun. I had already bought myself one and taught it to do a little secure JavaScript stuff. It's amazing that it's not just a just barely JavaScript engine. It's a really modern, nice JavaScript engine that they've got running on this thing.
I'll say a little about it. So I first met the Moddable guys at ATC 39 at a JavaScript standards meeting, and so this is one of their computers that has a full display and a touch screen on the front with it, where you can write with a pen and play games and stuff like that. The same, and it is a standard, standards compliant JavaScript engine designed to run on chips as small as light bulbs. We did a joint presentation with Moddable and MetaMask last year, where they were demonstrating, programming their light bulbs in in JavaScript, but it also runs in washing machines and dishwashers, and I think there's some medical devices starting to use it. So Moddable's XS is a JavaScript engine really designed for small memory footprint, high reliability systems. And that's sort of, when they first talked about that at the JavaScript standards meeting, we got very excited about that addressing some of the, we knew we wanted smart contracts in JavaScript, but Node is really big and really complicated and really fast. But big and complicated means buggy and perhaps dangerous to rely on there being no exploits. And so this gave us another avenue to much higher reliability systems. So there. Yeah, so I have one of the same things. It's funny that you have the same device from a different path. Yes. So after that, so we met them there, and we had already been working on, this was in 2017, maybe it's 2018. But we had already been working on the secure JavaScript, the SES subset for being able to do, safe extension and safe smart contracts with confined JavaScript programs. And that lined up well with what embedded systems need, right? Much of making safe JavaScript is locking down the things that you didn't need to be mutable, right? As I express it, JavaScript starts with a foundation of quicksand where anyone can change array iteration to steal your secrets and then iterate the array, or change number reformat to print it out on my printer and then tell you your format, right? And the lockdown work that we have in SES turns that quicksand into concrete. And in embedded systems, you really want concrete. You really want the system to be exactly as specified, work the way it's going to work, and be able to write your device controller, your dishwasher controller, whatever it is, in a system that has high reliability. Same set of requirements. And so Peter Haughty of Moddable and Patrick Sokal, they started the Embedded Systems Standards Group, TC53, which is JavaScript for embedded systems. And it's grown since then. I think I don't remember the formal title of it. Maybe someone will pipe in on chat. But that group then included not just them, but other people doing device level JavaScript, adopted the secure JavaScript, our lockdown hardened SES, as the standard JavaScript for embedded systems. So there are two JavaScript standards groups: the general one for the language across browsers and Node and Endo and whatever the next platform is, and then the embedded systems group. And the embedded systems group just said, okay, all that malleable, dangerous stuff, yeah, we don't need that. Let's just lock down to the 99.9% that we actually need of JavaScript that we actually need, and that's what they take as their baseline.
Yeah, you put a lot of stuff in ROM to start with because RAM.
Right. It can't be very malleable if it's ROM. Actually, they did amazing work to make it so that even the stuff that's in ROM that can't be rewritten, it's all designed so that it can be overridden in RAM. So the 1% that you decide to mutate, it overrides in RAM, and all the ROM stuff is burned in and can't be changed and all that. But it's nice to not have to do that anyway. So, yep. So anyway. We saw this, and so what we wanted to bring in JavaScript, I sent out a message somewhere, in our engineering news. Everyone who watches these calls should really get on our mailing list and get the engineering news. But Node.js is wonderful. It's great. It is what enabled a large class of growth in the software as a service world. And so we really do think of ourselves as trying to follow in those footsteps with Node.js for DeFi, right? But it's 2 million lines of code that is really focused and optimized for being really damn fast in a bunch of different areas. And it's running on V8, which needs to be not just fast for Node, but fast for browsers and stuff like that. And so its trade-offs are not necessarily around high reliability, right? And XS instead has these trade-offs around small memory footprint, high reliability, and that sort of thing. And so that was attractive to us. And then we met the engineers behind it, the team behind it, and hit it off well from a sort of philosophical and engineering bent, and the idea of being able to build this into yet another environment of blockchain. And so so we have since been having this background effort of let's make sure that we're building everything so we'll be able to move it over to run on XS. So when did that happen? When did that finally work?
Oh, it's been working better and better all the time for the last year or so.
At various engineering meetings, I would end up saying, closer now than ever before, which is a phrase I got from, I don't know, Eric Drexler or Mark Stigler or something. But within the last month, suddenly all of our unit tests, right? We'd launched Zoe, we'd launched the contract layer, we'd launched Swing Set, and it would be able to run all of our unit tests inside of XS with no errors, with all the expected behavior and that sort of thing. And so that was really good.
The test suite was that's what, I've been grinding away at and all this kind of stuff. But watching the blockchain go with all the vats and all that kind of stuff, that's when it was kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay. So why I wanted to talk about it now. So first, let's talk about how it's different, and then I'll say a little more about what's awesome about how we're planning to use XS in the future. So what's different about the chain now running with XS, whereas before we were running, it was Node.js integrated with Cosmos SDK, right? And now it's Node.js integrated with Cosmos SDK launching XS instances. So say more about that.
Right. So the smart contracts each run in a vat, which I think in the past we've sort of said, well, vats are a little bit like Unix processes. Now they are exactly like Unix processes. Each one runs in its own. The XS engine is on its own Unix process. Doesn't have to be. We might put more than one in a Unix process in the future, but right now they're exactly Unix processes. So you run PS and you can see all the vats. And so it's exactly the smart contract deterministic execution stuff that gets run in XS, and it gets metered. And so the JIT is really nice if you want, for large scale applications in a way, but it's not very helpful if you're trying to do deterministic execution. So there's no JIT in the XS engine. It's very predictable what it does. So
your point about metered. So one of the things validators will notice is the system starts up much faster, because one of the things we were not worried about, because we knew we were not going to be running this way in production, is that we would do metering by source to source transform of the JavaScript to insert metering calls. And that would and that both had to happen on the way in, running on the chain nodes, so that someone couldn't cheat and take their JavaScript and remove the metering calls and submit that for chain execution. Instead, you submit your JavaScript program to chain execution, and then it would rewrite it to preserve all the debugging lines and all that sort of thing, but insert the metering calls. That rewrite meant that installing a contract took some time. We certainly could have sped that up a lot, but launching it onto the XS engine means we don't have to do that rewrite, because because the XS engine has we need to find another name. I don't know. Has metering built in. That was one of the things that Dan worked on over the last year, and we collaborated with the Moddable folk as well, where they did a bunch of the core implementation to integrate the things we need for our usage into the core XS JavaScript engine. Right. So it's available not just us, but to everybody else, because Moddable XS is an open source engine. And so having metering built in means that we're able to do that. It's now sort of the initial version of metering. It'll be improved and enhanced as we go forward. But that means that the startup, instead of being several minutes, happens much, much faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as you said, one of the things you'll see is a whole bunch of processes. It is still early. Well, we'll talk about challenges. The other thing that the thing I want to, yes, let's talk about challenges now. So because it is for embedded systems, it has, I like the first thing that Dan went to when we were talking about this before, is that it has the debugging attributes for embedded systems, which is to say I have a very thin wire to a very small device that I'm trying to probe, so they have custom debugging hooks. Is that a fair way to characterize that?
Sure.
If anyone's worked on embedded systems, you know that it can be challenging to get it to be nice and debuggable. Now,
Brian Warner said he worked on a system where the only feedback he got was one LED blinking or not blinking.
Right. Yes.
It's not that bad.
So there's sort of a couple of cool things here. One is, of course, we've been working with them. They've been enhancing the debugging support as we've been adding, for example, standard format for debugging information as part of the JavaScript standards group. All the JavaScript standards work, of course, the XS engine follows very quickly and is part of that whole process, the part of the standards group. But there is in progress standard ways of getting stack information on error reports or that sort of thing. And so Modible's added that stuff, and that provides better error reporting. The error reporting that we now get out of contract development on our platform is really nice. It's already nice. And what people might not realize is it's amazingly nice, even though your stack is actually spanning, the Ag Solo on my machine, 3 different separate processes running on chain, and some elements in the browser, and you can end up seeing a full-on call graph that spans multiple machines. So that part of the distributed environment of the Agoric vision of JavaScript spanning multiple machines is really showing up and visible when you see one of these cross-chain remoted stack traces. And so the XS model all plays well with that.
Right.
It does not integrate with the VS Code debugger at this point, however.
Right.
But this is where some of the crazy stuff that we do not yet do, but will. Or I don't know, how close do we get to being able to rerun the same computation under Node and under XS? What is that? What are the hooks for that now? And then where are we going with that?
For all I know, they finished that last night. I know they've been talking about it in the last 3 days or something. But yes, this idea that if things don't go quite right on the blockchain, and you want to be able to use your nicer developer tools to take a look and replay it, because we do this deterministic execution because we record every message that comes in, and so you just replay the messages, and you should see the same execution.
Yep. One of the I know there's validator challenges for better explorers and better and better analysis tools. One of the things that I want to see, and that we certainly plan to have, if we don't already have it, is in a block explorer, on this block, click and rerun all the contract execution.
Oh, right. Yes.
Right. And no one's gotten there yet, but all the hooks are there to be able to do that. And that's certainly something that I expect to have before production, is exactly in the block explorer. The Merkle tree does not have all the data that's in the smart contract. So run that block, start a checkpoint. Well, we'll talk about checkpointing in a moment. Run that block and stop in the middle of that contract execution and tell me what happened. And then I want to step through it in my VS Code debugger. And that would be very, very cool.
Yes.
Okay, debugging experience right now, you wouldn't necessarily want to do your contract iterative development on top of the XS engine, but it executes, JavaScript standard, it executes exactly the same, or, modular performance issues we'll talk about in a minute. It executes exactly the same as if it was running on Node. So when the engine starts, when the Agoric chain starts, when the swing set starts, it's got a flag to say, do I launch vats? Do I launch these new contracts in a separate XS instance or in a Node sub-process? And our current chain can run with a mix of those. So we can say that one run in Node, the kernel run, in Node, all the user vats run as XS instances. Oh, except for that one, run that as a Node process, and so forth. And so that means that when you're doing development, you can rapidly develop with all the standard VS Code extensions and debugging and stepping and stuff that people in the rest of the development community take as their bar for debugging, but it's sort of awe-inspiring when people see it in the crypto communities, right? Because debugging tools are generally terrible, and you're able to do that under VS Code. What did you say?
Everything's new, so
Yeah.
They haven't had 15 years or whatever to build debugging tools.
And multiple companies spending tens or hundreds of millions of dollars on awesome development tools that we just get to use for free. So that's pretty awesome.
Oh, you mentioned deterministic execution. We were debugging something the other day and running it for half an hour or whatever, and we had running Zoe contracts and all this kind of stuff, and we weren't sure if it was doing something different. In some cases, it was doing exactly the same thing to 5 significant digits. The compute meter showed. So it's like blink. This thing's it's working.
Right. I think we had one where there was in the comm system. So swing set is sort of the OS for the Agoric system, where it's the thing that can launch multiple vats that are all running and communicating with each other asynchronously from their confined environments with limited authority. And then there is a vat that runs the comm system, so that processes running on chain can communicate messages out to other chains or out to client machines or what have you. And it had a what was Brian Warner, our lead engineer? I think his phrase was an over-enthusiastic assert. Right. It was asserting in scenarios where it didn't need to. And I don't know whether they did that this time, but being able to fix that assert and then not start over, but simply rerun that vat to catch up and replay everything up to the point where the assert would have failed, but now it's running just slightly different code that now doesn't fail that assert, and the system proceeds on. That's the kind of thing that we'll be able to do in the future. So,
right.
Hey guys, so I'm gonna break in quickly. So I want to. You've touched on it a little bit, but I just want to have one last word on for validators that are part of this phase with the switch to XS. What is something aside from the faster chain start? What should they either be on the lookout for? Or what else might they notice? And then I may take it from there.
All right. So as we mentioned, you can see the different processes. It's kind of nice. It's a little bit more visible. And if we run into these challenges, so if obviously you're always watching for if your validator misses blocks. But one of the reasons you could miss blocks is that something in this area is going a little haywire, and things may slow down too. You may see slow blocks, and if they get slower and slower and slower, then it's like raise a red flag, and we'll definitely get involved there.
Yeah, I like that. So I want to expand on this, and that's one of the main. I'm glad you asked the question, because that's the main reason I wanted to talk about this in the session. Is that it is new integration. This stuff came together, finally very quickly, and it's sufficiently important that we wanted to put it out there and get people working on it. Embedded systems are optimized for small memory footprint. And when in your embedded system, you're going to have a fixed set of devices that can't grow under user input, that means you can use data structures, and you should use data structures that are very simple code, but not necessarily efficient in memory use when you start to scale, right? If your by far typical case is arrays with 10 elements, then you don't do the optimization you would need to do if you might be dealing with arrays of 100,000 elements. Right. And so there are places where that optimization is not the right thing for the chain. And we've already, and so the last week has been spent discovering the low-hanging fruit of those optimizations and changing them. And many of those are just tuning parameters. There was one or two bugs that are irrelevant to the embedded systems case, but are relevant to us, not in terms of memory safety, but just in terms of allocation efficiency. And then there are going to be ones that we have not yet run against that we know are not, that we know won't scale enough, for example, to survive our next testnet phase, which is stress test. And we'll be working on those and addressing those between now and stress test. So that's where he's saying the memory may climb or the block performance may slow because there's something that's just got an n squared performance to it that will go away. The other thing is that as part of a desire to prioritize getting this in, there are elements of garbage collection that we turned off. So things that we already know how to clean up, but we aren't currently because some other piece is relying on, weak pointers to it or heck it is. We've pinned those in place. It's what Brian calls our safety pins. So we would rather grow memory a little bit right now in order to get the rest of the testing done than have a dangling pointer. And so that stuff too will be cleaned up addressed over the next couple of months, but that will cause memory footprints to grow. So we want the validators to have experience with lots of processes being spawned. We want them to have experience with tracking all of these different processes that have different small memory footprints. They have different, each one of these separate engines has a different checkpointing file. So we didn't talk about checkpointing, but these engines are such that the entire JavaScript engine for a VAT can separately checkpoint. So if the thing terminates, it can, it can be swapped out of memory, brought into memory. When we restart, we can restart from checkpoint instead of having to play everything from the beginning. Since we know the checkpoint is a deterministic result of replay, that's just an optimization, and it still keeps that nice determinist execution semantics. And so all of those elements are new with this. And so any one of them could be, it's novel territory here. It's really awesome stuff that's come together here. And, and the validators are going to be our, they're not the first line of defense. We definitely have done plenty of testing ourselves, right, but they're certainly the second line of defense.
Great. So thank you guys. With that, I'm gonna let you take your leave, and
all right,
I'll sort of take us through the rest of the material.
Thanks, Roland.
See ya. All right. So as you guys can tell, there's sort of a lot that has gone into this integration, and as I mentioned, this is something that we're really excited about. In terms of effects, as Dean and Dan both mentioned, memory footprints might grow. We might see some performance stuff during this phase. The actual load testing that we're doing is relatively minimal, but for stress test, it will not be. So there will be processes running in part to generate fees. So we will see things grow over the course of the phase. We think it should be fine, but as Dean said, this is all new. So we're really excited, and we appreciate all the validators coming and helping us test this as we launch. So with that, I'm going to transition from the Incentivized Testnet to talk a little bit about the upcoming developer program and developer beta bounties that we're looking to put together here. So this is a program that we've been talking about internally and working on for quite a while. And so this is the first time that we're really discussing it externally, but this has been a topic of long conversation here. As we approach mainnet, we know that there's a whole bunch of stuff that we don't either have time to build internally or think should be built by third parties, but also in general want to make sure that we have parts of the community are extremely talented developers. We've already seen it with a lot of the challenge tasks that got submitted and people talking to us in Discord. So we're really excited to put together a program that will have specific bounties structured for developers who are interested in working on them. And so the way to think about this is we've got 3 different categories of bounties that we're thinking about right now. One is tools and infrastructure. So things like, for example, Dean mentioned in passing an explorer for things that are happening in our swing set layer. And that gets more interesting with access running. Core DeFi components. So these might be things that are higher up in the stack, more, you think of it more like application level stuff that is critical for a functioning economy. So for example, we might need a loan protocol, we might need a synthetic asset protocol, and we have some examples on the next slide. And then also front end design. So a lot of the front end work that we've done has been sort of in preparation for phases or releases, but has not been the sort of thing that we, we'd love to get some specific front end talent working on our treasury or working on our wallet or other user facing applications. So if you have talent or interest in any of these areas, we'd love to hear from you, and there will be a survey that's coming out. So I'll talk about that in a minute. And yeah, just to hit the example bounties, and I think I just talked through a few of them, but re-implementing our Agoric wallet front end in React. Right now it's done in Svelte. We have React components that we've used for the treasury dApp, but being able to put a skin on the wallet, all the functionality is there, and this should be something that could be straightforward, but we would love to see it in React. We'd also love to see a way for stable asset pairs to be swapped with minimal slippage. So you see this in Ethereum with Curve. Uniswap v3 is another way to approach that problem. But this is something that Agoric is going to need as well. So we'd love to see a developer who's interested in working on that step up. And then also another critical piece of our economy functioning is having tight arbitrage between our AMMs and non-local but close dexes in other places. So for example, the Gravity dex, if there's a pair for build and run on the Gravity dex and there's a pair for build and run on our AMM. We'd love to see an arbitrage bot built to make sure that those prices are kept in line. And again, these are just examples, but we will be launching with specific bounties that we want people to approach. So the way to get started, or the way to prepare, is get to know the tools. So starting with the beta site is a good way to do that. Head to beta, use the Treasury application as a user, but then also dig into the code and start digging into our documentation. Come talk to us in Discord. And then the developer survey is going to get sent out, I think, via email, via Discord, via Telegram. And what we're really looking for there, I know a number of you have already joined our newsletter list and things like that. What we're looking for in the developer survey is to understand, who is interested in spending how much time doing what kind of thing, right? So we have three different, I mentioned three different categories, but then we also have different levels of effort that we might need for bounties. Some of them might be a couple days, others might last a bit longer and be almost more like a contractor kind of effort, and then everything in between. So depending on the interest that we see, we're going to use that to prioritize which bounties we launch with, just to make sure that we can hit developers who are interested in working on the specific things that we need. So really excited for this program to start coming together, and there's a lot that we want built, and so if you are interested, we'd love to hear from you in that survey. As a reminder, the beta is still live, so head over to beta.agoric.com. You'll be linked to instructions to get your wallet, which you can load from Docker, and then you'll be able to interact with the Treasury application. If you haven't done that yet, you should do that. And if you are a validator in the Incentivized Testnet, you will need for at least one of our tasks, you will need to interact with the Treasury app. So getting started now would help. As a reminder, the GravityDEX competition launched, I believe, 2 days ago now, and Run is in there as the Agoric stable currency. So if you are looking to trade in the GravityDEX, the only currency pegged to $1 is Run. So just want to plug it. Several of us have joined the competition, and would love to see more of the community do that as well. I think the GravityDEX will end up being an important piece of DeFi infrastructure in Cosmos, and we're certainly thinking hard about how that relates to our own economy, and it's something that you should check out. Finally, so what's coming up next? So we have a Pillar Series talk with Dean on May 19th. So look forward to that, and likely more announcements coming over the next several weeks as well. So stay tuned on Discord, stay tuned in Telegram, and as always, we really appreciate everyone in the community. You guys have been, it's been a growing community, and you guys have been excellent in just helping each other, helping us, and being positive. So. And I just saw Dean's comment in YouTube. I am absolutely a Run whale, which is a very conservative thing to be, but yes, I have a lot of Run in the GravityDEX. All right, thanks very much.